So guys, we did it. We hit level 100 on the Sorcerer class, and let's talk about it. So I want to kind of break this video into like a couple of parts of just talking about like the pros, the cons, and kind of like the end game and what you can expect leveling from 1 to 100 playing the Sorcerer. And I'm going to be swapping between like positive and negative, and then also I will be making a build video on my current build so you guys can see it. I know a lot of you want to see it. It'll be coming out tomorrow at 10 a.m. Central. After I get done posting this video, I'll start working on that one. But let's jump into it. So, Sorcerer class, how is it? I think the class is 10 out of 10. It is fun, it does a lot of damage. When you're leveling up from 1 to 100, you're going to have a great time. So if you're a sorcerer, if you're considering sorcerer going into season 1, I promise you're going to have so much fun, whether you choose the route of ice, fire, or lightning. I chose lightning on this run through the preseason, and I enjoyed it a lot. I got my arc lash to hit for 1.1 million today and last night on stream, so that was like really cool seeing that much damage with my basic attack. But the sorcerer has damage, and now let's get into I think the negative part, which a lot of you guys will probably experience who are sorcerer mains, is when it comes to boss fights, especially in the early game. So sorcerer, when you're playing the class, the beginning you're gonna have a great time, right? You're gonna kill all the ads, you're gonna do a good job. When you come to bosses, you're gonna notice that your damage is kind of mediocre. It's not like it's terrible, but it's not the best either. Okay, and that's kind of gonna be the theme of your character moving forward, going into the world tiers. And even in like the late game too, you're gonna it's gonna take you a while to get to that point where you nuke the boss. For me, it really was like I would build the stagger up so much on the boss, and then once the boss got staggered, I would kill it. But now that I've gotten like in the 90s, I finally figured out my build and I figured out damage. I knew my build I kind of wanted to run, but when I got higher up in the game, I started really paying more attention to damage and how to stack damage and things like that. And now I can actually kill a boss before I stagger it. So that's progress to me, and that's kind of the biggest. I think one of the really the biggest negatives for the class is just your boss damage sucks unless you pull the stagger off. No matter what build you really choose with, you're never gonna kill things as fast as a rogue, a barb. And I think even a druid at the end game destroys, and like even necromancer destroys. And that's why you see a lot of people will say that the sorcerer is quote unquote the weakest class in the game, even though like I don't think the class is weak at all. I just think when it comes to certain aspects of the game, the sorcerer like obviously is just not as good as some. When it comes to like bosses, I can agree that sorcerer is probably the weakest when it comes to bosses, because you're really heavily focusing on stagger damage, kind of like when you watch that clip of that guy from Maxwell. I don't know his name, so I apologize. I'm not giving credit where credit is due, but I'm pretty sure you guys have all seen it if you're clicking on this video. He basically kills the final boss in like less than 3 minutes. And he immediately staggers the boss and is doing millions of damage with ice. And that's kind of like the point. Like, that's kind of why, like I say, sorcerer in a way like does kind of suck and is the weakest class, is because you really have to build towards that stagger and then nuke. You can't be like the other class where you just straight up do a lot of damage and you can kill. Now, I will say positive about the class is when you're playing it and you're going through the game from 1 to 100, you're gonna have a great time. Like, nothing is gonna be too challenging for you to do. You're gonna be able to kill monsters very easy. You're gonna blow through everything. The enchantment system for the class is so cool because it allows you to really experiment and really have you make really cool builds and be like have some variety, be unique. You don't have to necessarily like follow the meta too hard with sorcerer while you're leveling. And speaking of the enchanting, that's kind of the next negative I want to bring up is where the sorcerer does suck is you really have to invest in fire, and the reason why is for this passive right here. Obviously, I have points in it for my amulet, so that's how I'm able to get to 150% bonus damage with Immobilize. And the reason why I say that is because, like, deciding not to choose this passive, in my opinion, is just like shooting yourself in the foot. It is so much damage, and you have to remember too, when you do stagger the boss, this is going to apply to the boss. And then also like you'll deal 60% increase more crit to burning enemies. So like I said, your firebolt enchantment's always gonna burn, which as you see here, that's my enchantment is firebolt. So I can always cause enemies to burn. And that's kind of like, and kind of going on that topic is like why I think this is a negative. I feel like for sorcerer, they should actually add a third enchantment. I don't know how game breaking that would be, but I feel like maybe with an expansion, whenever they expand the classes and they expand the Paragon, I don't know how they plan on doing it, but they did say that when they do that, they are going to expand skill trees of current classes. They're not just going to be like this forever and that's it. So with them saying that, I'm hoping part of that update or whenever that comes out, don't quote me on it, but whenever that comes out, I'm hoping that they'd say, hey, sorcerers, you get a third enchant. That would be very cool. That would be awesome. I would love that. I wouldn't even care if that was like, like a paid expansion thing. Like, you have to own this expansion to unlock that because you have to do like a quest in there to get it. I know people would probably call that pay to win, but I mean, like, if you're playing Diablo, you're most likely going to buy the expansion anyway, you know? So yeah, so probably a hot take right there. But that's kind of like the negative I want to talk about the Sorcerer. And then another positive about the class is it's so much fun. Like you're gonna blast through the game, you're gonna have a good time, and then in PvP the Sorcerer is pretty awesome. I rated this class in PvP as an A tier, and the only reason why I said A tier is because I feel like the tracking for its skills are not the best, and that's what really hurts the class. I think melee classes really dominate in PvP. And I know some people are gonna go in my comment section and they're gonna say, "Hey, you should be running." I was looking for you should be running like an ice shards build, etc. But it's like I said, I don't like playing ice. I think ice is it's like kind of boring, and it's like it's so strong that like I feel like you're not even trying to play the game. The game's playing for you. Again, that's another hot take, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about going into the pinnacle boss. So with Uber Lilith being the pinnacle boss, that is like the test of your build, right? And that's what the devs talked about when it comes to like testing your skill of the game and seeing how well do you know your character. And unfortunately, from what I've seen and from what I've tested, uh, it is true. She's hard, and especially on Sorcerer, like you do like no damage to her, like none. Like with my current build right now, like I said, this build I can hit hundreds of thousands of damage consistently, like across the board all the time. I can like hit with a million. Like look at my arc lash. My arc lash tooltip is sitting at like 12.1, without me being buffed up and like all the multipliers going off, like just 12k. And that's without using like topaz like as my like on my weapons. I'm using sapphires, right? But even with that, within like I was fighting her, and probably within like 10 seconds I got her to the 0 of 100, and then she killed me. And I did it again, I got her to the 0, and then she killed me. And obviously there's a combination of like skill issues, but it's also for me an issue with like DPS check. Like I said, like I think I'm doing a lot of damage because I don't have a problem killing anything in the game. Even in tier 50, tier 60, I don't have a problem killing anything in the dungeons. I don't have a problem killing any bosses. I kill bosses like within like 15 to 30 seconds max, just depending if my rotation gets thrown off or something. But like, uh, it's good. But like I said, I feel like the thing that sucks about the Sorcerer though is you really are forced to play ice if you're really planning on running like the most optimal build. And unfortunately it's by a mile like how much you have to run ice. Because like I said, that damage is insane, especially with Blizzard, and then now Blizzard got buffed, and then the aspect with Blizzard, um, ice just really is meta, and I understand why people run ice on the Sorcerer after playing and getting the class to 100. I do plan on making all three elements of the Sorcerer because the Sorcerer will be my main class. And I'm sorry, guys, if this video went on as a ramble, but I really wanted to kind of give you guys a real expectation of playing the class. So, like, the biggest takeaways I want you all to know is, one, you're going to have a lot of fun playing the Sorcerer. There's a lot of build variety with the class, and you can easily do any endgame content with the character, no problem. You can PvP with this character very well. It's arguably one of the best classes to take into PvP at the moment. But the part that you're gonna have to consider while you're taking your time to level is you have to decide, okay, how bad do you really want to kill Uber Lilith, and if she's something you really want to do, like a challenge you really want to do, I highly advise you go down the road of ice. You make an ice build, you go on YouTube. There's a bunch of good, talented content creators out there that have made build videos talking about the ice sorcerer. So I would recommend watching one of their videos and checking it out, and I would just ride with ice to the end, because unfortunately ice is just that strong, kind of like the necromancer, how bone spear is just, it's just meta. Like it's like if you don't run bone spear on your necromancer, like what are you doing? at least in the case of Sorcerer, at least all three classes perform very well and they feel good. I played R-Clash because it was fast. I just love how quick you are. I love how you're critting all the time. I love just like the lightning flying everywhere. Aesthetically, it just looks amazing. Like, you just see everything going crazy on the screen. But anyways, guys, that's just my take on the class. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Consider subscribing